Boost is sponsored by Gillette, the best a man can get.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That is the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. We want to thank you all for spending your Memorial Day with us as Fox Sports honors this important day of remembrance. We got a lot to get to over the course of the next 3 hours this morning. We're going to focus mainly on sports because that's what we do best. And we are going to start with the Eastern Conference Finals because that, for Toronto, was what was best. It was a Saturday night to remember for Canada. Bucks Raptors Game 6. Kawhi Leonard fully justifying his trade to Toronto last year, posterizing Giannis to cap off a 26-3 run by the Raptors. Kawhi Leonard finishing off with 27 points, 17 rebounds, 7 assists, and a series win and a trip to the finals. Bucks are going home after losing 4 in a row. Raptors advance to their first ever NBA Finals, where they will face the Golden State Warriors. Here's Kawhi after the historic performance.
It's great. I worked so hard to get to this point with the season I had last year. Just always betting on myself and knowing what just knowing what I feel and, what's right for me. I don't really judge my, game like that. I'm more of a team aspect, see what my team is doing. Just want to win. I don't care about being the best player. I want to be the best team. I always said that. And, just before the season when we made the trade, Masai felt that way about me. He told me how he felt and why he made the trade. And, it's turning out. It's turning out well now. I mean, we're in the finals and we're not done yet.
Kawhi is like, I don't know how many more good things I can say about him, right? I mean, he's just so good. And again, I'm seeing a level of competitive greatness out of him. I mean, it's just his willing us to win and him grabbing those rebounds and willing those shots in almost, it seems like, and going down and locking up somebody and taking the ball from them. It's what it is. It's great competitive desire.
It's taken a long time to get here in my career, 13 years, 7 years here. I've ran into one guy for a while, and, we were given an opportunity, he left, and we beat a really good team in Milwaukee. For me, I'm savor the moment, but, I'm not satisfied.
All right, CC, what a turnaround for this Raptors team in this series against Milwaukee. How did they do it? How did the Raptors come back from being down 0-2 in the series and then winning?
Well, it's easy to say Kawhi. It's easy to just talk about him and his dominance on the offense and defensive end. But collectively, you can talk about all the guys that were there in the press conference. I believe that the coach did a tremendous job keeping faith in his team, especially in players like Powell and Van Fleet, Norman Powell and Van Fleet. Van Fleet was playing awful, but he caught fire, but the coaching staff continued to play them. Compared to, on the other side, Coach Bud, Mirotic. He benches him game number 5 after he had struggled in the previous series. So how is the team going to duplicate what they did in Milwaukee, what they did in the regular season, in the postseason? They weren't able to do it. And from a defensive standpoint, people won't want to talk about it, but Toronto was the better defensive team. I thought they were in the Final Four. They were the best defensive team. The stats would say that the Bucks were. But the Bucks' inability to be able to guard the three-point line, that didn't hinder them during the regular season. It did come back to be able to bite them. The weakness in their defense, because they led the NBA in defense. In the playoffs, it's a different story. Toronto became far more physical. Their role players hit more shots. Bench scoring, first 3 games of the series. Bench of the Bucks scores 43 a game. The other 3 games, they scored 20 a game. So the adjustments, I would say, are the subplots. But ultimately, it comes back, who was the best player on the court? In basketball, most times, you're going to win. In the game that's played on 94-foot court, the guy that's the best player, because he's playing both ends of it, Kawhi Leonard was the best player in this series.
And that's what Kyle Lowry alluded to. He said, we kept running into one guy. You kept running into a team where you didn't have the best player on the court. And this time you did have the best player on the court. Listen, I obviously got this dead wrong. I said a couple weeks ago the Bucks were going to win the championship. And as of 10 days ago, I felt better about that than I did when I first said it. They're up 2-0 in this series. They had just blown out Toronto in Game 2. And even after Game 3, that was a double overtime game. That was a game where Milwaukee had multiple chances to win the game and win the series, essentially. Because you go up 3-0, no team's ever come back from that. Only a handful of teams ever even forced a Game 7 after being down 0-3. But that was the turning point in this series. The Raptors in that game were able to close it out. They then blow them out in Game 4. And then what is the story of Game 5 and 6? Period, point blank, the Raptors had a closer, and the Bucks right now did not. And that is not an indictment on who Giannis is going to be. That does not take away from what he did during the season. But at the end of these games, the Raptors were able to run the offense they wanted to run. They were able to take away exactly what the Bucks wanted to do. And when all else failed, the Raptors could say, Kawhi, get us a bucket or at least get us a good shot. And the Bucks could not do that. The Raptors could do that, I should say, and the Bucks could not do that. It was, I mean, it really is, to me, it is all the points you make that I was saying, can you even keep playing Van Vliet? And then he started shooting 85% from three. The minutiae of the Bucks' #1 defense in basketball, despite allowing the most three-pointers in basketball, came back to haunt them. All those things mattered. But the headline of this was Kawhi Leonard, a more veteran player, a more seasoned player, seized the moment, and Giannis, in his first big moment like this, couldn't do it. And I don't think that speaks to his future, but it speaks to the present. You're absolutely right. The best player going into the series, I thought, was Giannis. The best player coming out of the series, without question, was Kawhi Leonard.
When Nick Nurse was asked what was the difference after Game 2, what was the turnaround, what was the biggest adjustment you guys made to compete with the Bucks, he said, we needed to be more physical. We just weren't that physical with them. We needed to set more screens. We needed to spend more time with Kawhi on Giannis and really try to stop him. But in the end, it seems like what you said was right. This Toronto team, they didn't get overwhelmed by being down 0-2. They had the experience and the wherewithal to know if they just kept their game going, they were going to stay in this series. And Milwaukee, it seemed like, were the ones that were a little rattled and shaken and ended up losing 4 in a row. Do you think that being physical was the turnaround for this team?
Well, they had to yuck up the game. Toronto doesn't have the type of team that they're going to allow Giannis to get out in the fast break. There are a lot of teams. You look at the Clippers. How did the Clippers make a series of the Warriors? Man, they got physical with it. It is a critical part of basketball. And the way the Bucks want to play, they want Giannis to play downhill from the point where he orchestrates the offense. And if you're not physical with him, he's just going to finish with dunks in the lane or dishing out to open three-pointers. So, yeah, Nick Nurse had it right. Yes, it is time to be able to get physical, but more importantly, let's put our best player on their best player. And those adjustments won out this series because Kawhi in head-to-head, and typically we don't see this. We don't see the best players guarding each other on both sides of the court. But Kawhi took the challenge, and he slowed down Giannis, and then ultimately it got in Giannis's head. He didn't want to go to the hole as much. He didn't want to get fouled. The free throw shooting was awful.
It's a huge
and
problem.
You could tell how it changed his game. So his game has got to grow. You still, Jenna? We're going to keep saying this. He's not Ben Simmons, but his mid-range games in the playoffs, he doesn't have one. And you could see it. Late in the game, he's 5 feet away from the bucket, wasn't even looking to score, looking more to pass.
And the Raptors' veteran team understood much better than the Bucks the difference between being up or down 13-15 and being up or down 22-23. And by that I mean there were multiple times in games 5 and 6 where Milwaukee got separation, looked like they were taking control. And that is where a veteran team in the moment,
a special team, not just veteran team,
for sure,
a team that's going to have a special season.
What they do is they step on your throat. They turn 14 into 24, and it's over. And on the flip side, where a veteran or a potential special team recognizes these next 5 possessions are the biggest possessions of our season, certainly of the game. We cannot let 14 turn into 24. So what did we see at the end of third quarter of game 6? With 2.5 minutes left, Milwaukee's up 15 points. At the end of the quarter, it's only 5 because Toronto bared down as part of a 26-3 run that flipped the entire game. Milwaukee was not equipped for the moment. It's wildly disappointing for them, but credit to the Raptors for the greatest moment in the history of their franchise.
All right, time now for Put a Grid on It, sponsored by CarMax. So Kawhi's masterful playoff run continued on Saturday. The Claw finishing 27.